What is going on, everyone? I hope you are ready to learn some English on this Tuesday. Yeah, so I'm off summer vacation. I'm on summer vacation. I'm off from work. So I thought, let's do a midweek English lesson about the state of Kentucky. So hopefully, after this English lesson, your English listening comprehension skills will be that much better. You'll learn a little bit about American culture. Should be amazing. And I have a feeling most people who watch this will be watching on replay. This is the fifth state we've done. We've done Alaska and Nevada together in one lesson, state of Arkansas, state of Vermont, and now we are going to do the state of Kentucky. I've never been to the state of Kentucky. So we are going to be talking about the state of Kentucky. And if you look at that thumbnail, you can see I'm there. A confused look on my face, hoping people will click on that confused look. But in the background, it looks like there is a basketball, something to do with a horse, maybe a bridge in the back. We will talk about all of those things. That city is the capital, Frankfurt. We'll talk about that too. So the first thing I would love to talk about is just what is Kentucky? Well, Kentucky is a state in the United States located in the southeastern region. Southeastern region. So it might be helpful to take a look at where Kentucky is located in the United States. It is in the part of the country that would be considered the South. It's in the northern part of the South. But that little red dot is definitely in the eastern part of the country. So it is considered part of the Southeast. Now, we should probably talk about this again. I talked about it when we covered Vermont. But before the United States became the United States, there was something called the original 13 colonies. It's almost like the first 13 states. Vermont was the 14th state. So just right after the United States gained its independence from England and actually became states, Vermont joined just a little bit after that. And then the 15th state to join the Union, we call it, to join the United States was this state called Kentucky. It became the 15th state to join the Union on June 1st, 1792. All right, in this next sentence, I would like to give you an opportunity to listen to how some of these states are pronounced. And we will cover all of these states eventually. Kentucky is bordered by 7 states. Illinois, I know there is an S there, but it's pronounced Illinois. That is where the city of Chicago is located in the state of Illinois. Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, Tennessee, and Missouri. So none of those, well, I shouldn't say that. Some of those states were actually part of the original 13 colonies. Virginia was. Virginia, one of the first states there. Oh, hey. Good reminder. If this is your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe. Speaking of the 13 colonies, this is what those 13 colonies were. You had New Hampshire, you had Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York. Right next to New York, and that beige is Vermont. So that was the 14th state. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And then right on the outside is Kentucky. I have that red arrow pointing to Kentucky. Let's talk about how many people live in Kentucky. It's not a very big state. Kentucky has a population of right around 4.5 million people. It is the 26th biggest state by population. We are going to talk about two ways states are measured. One is by population. Anytime you hear population, think people. So the population of Kentucky is 4.5 million people. We're also going to talk about something called by area, and that means how much land the state has. So we have 50 states in the United States, and in my opinion, Kentucky is neither big nor small. It's just right in the middle. Comes in with the 26th most by population. So kind of in the middle, right? But we will talk about by area now. So this is how much land a state covers. So the state of Kentucky covers an area of around 40,409 square miles. And I think it's only the US that uses miles. So let's convert that into kilometers. 104,659 square kilometers. It is the 37th biggest state by area. So kind of on the smaller end. 37 out of 50. It's kind of on the small end. All right, just checking the chat. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Excellent lesson today. Thanks for everything. Oh, yeah, happy to do it. Thailand. A couple times. Yeah, we're not going to talk too much about rivers or lakes in Kentucky, but they do have some. If you look in the thumbnail, I'm not sure if you can quite tell, but the city of Frankfurt, the capital, we'll talk about that in a minute, but a river, I'm not sure which one, goes right through the state capital. Somalia is in the house. Welcome. All right. Okay, good question. Just to Abdi, how many miles am I away from Kentucky? It's a good question. I would say probably in miles, about 1,000 miles. Yeah, somewhere in there, 900 miles. So it's quite a ways. Yeah, I think it would probably take me about 14 hours to drive, I think, to Kentucky, non-stop. No way. Jeez. Thailand, yeah, so fairly small, but a lot of people. We would say that Thailand is densely populated. I've talked about that in another lesson. When people live very closely together, we would say it is densely populated. The opposite, so if there are not a lot of people living close together, we would say that is sparsely populated. So Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries. Mongolia is one of the most sparsely populated countries. Hope that helps. Whoa, geez. Robin, I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. That's a good term to know. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Not talking about politics today. No, no way. Nope. Sorry. We're not talking about that, Robin. All right. Togo. Hey, what's going on? Hey, if you're just joining us, my name is Brent. This is Speak English with this guy. Please don't forget to like, maybe. Throw a little like there. Subscribe if this is your first time here. We are streaming on both Facebook and YouTube. Where do we end off here? I think this. We haven't talked about this yet, but Kentucky is known as the bluegrass state. And you might be thinking, wait, grass? I thought that stuff was green. Well, apparently, in the state of Kentucky, there is something called bluegrass. And if you are watching, you can see I am showing a picture of grass that is, yes, mostly green, but it does have a tinge of blue. Tinge, just a little bit of a color there, and it's blue, just a tinge of blue. And Kentucky is known as the bluegrass state because the state has lots of bluegrass that can be found in many fields. Hope that helps. A little strange maybe for some people, but yeah, there is grass that's mostly green, but it has a tinge of blue. Let's talk about the capital. So every country that I know of has a capital, and that is probably where the government is. Well, each of our 50 states also has a capital, and Kentucky's capital is a city called Frankfort. We need to talk about this, though. The Kentucky Derby. I'm not sure if that is famous throughout the world, but in the United States, it is very famous. In the spring, probably the biggest horse race. Oh, I forgot to show you. There's a picture of Frankfort right there. That is the state Capitol building. That is where business takes place. So the United States has its own Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Each state has its own Capitol building. And in Frankfort, you will find Kentucky's Capitol building. But we were talking about the Kentucky Derby, right? Very famous horse race in the United States. Like I said, I'm not sure if... Oh, hang on. Just checking the comments here. I thought bluegrass was a type of music. Stay tuned. We will be talking about that. But that is where the term bluegrass comes from, like actual grass that looks a little blue. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wanted to look that up and I never did, but Frankfurt, is there any connection to Germany? Could be. Wait, what's that? If you're living in Vermont, I'd guess for me, Vermont, where I live, Vermont would take me about 5 hours. And I just went to Vermont a couple weeks ago. If you check my YouTube channel, Speak English with this guy, I have maybe 5 lessons about the state of Vermont. It's a great state. Cambodia, welcome. All right. Yeah. Where did that comment go? Yeah, Lino, I like the way you think. Let's not talk politics. Let's not talk religion. You know, I respect everybody's politics and religion as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, right? But yeah, probably don't need to talk about that. Sparsely versus densely. Nice notes. Good notes. So you can see that this woman is wearing a rather large hat. And I have a sentence or two for you about that. At the Kentucky Derby, remember, that is a horse race. At the Kentucky Derby, people wear really fancy hats and stylish clothes. It's a special tradition for everyone, especially women, to wear big and beautiful hats that make them look extra special. And sometimes if people aren't attending the Kentucky Derby, they will have a party at their house. Like maybe one of my friends would have a Kentucky Derby party to watch the horse race on TV. And some people might dress in a very fancy way with a really big hat. I have never been to one of those parties. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of friends. People don't invite me to parties very often. Just kidding. But yeah, no, I haven't. I've never been to a Kentucky Derby party. Let's see. A little more about the Kentucky Derby here. Kentucky is famous for its horse racing, and the Kentucky Derby is held annually in Louisville. That's how you pronounce that. Louisville. Let's talk about two very difficult words here. One is annually, and the other is continuously. Continuously. The Kentucky Derby is the oldest continuously held horse race in the United States. It has been run annually since 1875. So continuously might be a word you are not familiar with in English. But if you know continue, then you kind of know this word. In that sentence, continuously means it has never been canceled. And if you saw the lesson I did yesterday when I practiced for this lesson, we talked about this. So if something is canceled, it means it doesn't happen. It doesn't take place. The Kentucky Derby has never been canceled. And if you look at 1875, you had World War I. That's what we call it in English. World War I, World War II, the coronavirus. So sometimes it was postponed, which means it didn't happen at the time it was supposed to. It happened later, but it was never canceled, or it hasn't been canceled yet. Has not been canceled yet in 148 years, I think, if my math is correct. Annually, that means it happens once a year, annually. So the Kentucky Derby takes place in the spring every year, once a year, the Kentucky Derby. Check the chat, make sure. Yeah, I did not include Kentucky Fried Chicken. If you're just joining us, Audie asked about Kentucky Fried Chicken at the beginning of the lesson. I didn't include Kentucky Fried Chicken, but I figured that is where most people have probably heard the word Kentucky with KFC. KFC. I'm not sure. I've never heard of the green card lottery game. I'm not sure. I haven't heard of that. Louisville. Yes, Louisville. I know there's an S in it, but it is Louisville. Louisville. Do we have anything about the Kentucky Derby? Yes, we do. Excuse me. We do have one more thing about the Kentucky Derby. Two more things. If you look at that picture, that is basically a necklace of roses. And what happens is when the horse wins the Kentucky Derby, whichever horse wins it, they will get that necklace of roses. At the Kentucky... I already read that. This is the one I haven't read yet. The Kentucky Derby is sometimes called the Run for the Roses because when a horse wins, it gets a pretty necklace made of red roses to celebrate its big win. And I will make that picture a little bit bigger so you can see it. The person who rides a horse, we call that person a jockey in English. A jockey. How about this? In English, there is a drink. be careful. It has alcohol in it. So if you do not drink alcohol, you do not want a mint julep. I have never had a mint julep. I heard they don't taste great. Some people might like them, but anybody I've talked to says they don't like the taste of mint juleps. But these are often served at Kentucky Derby parties. They are served at the Kentucky Derby. It's a kind of a famous drink. It is a drink that is synonymous with the Kentucky Derby. Here's an advanced English word for you. Synonymous. That means when you think of one thing, you think of this thing. And so for the Kentucky Derby, the alcoholic drink called the mint julep is synonymous with the Kentucky Derby. Let me see. What are some other things that are synonymous? New York City. It might be synonymous with the Statue of Liberty. So when you think of New York City, the first thing you might think of is the Statue of Liberty. So synonymous. Big word there. That's for the advanced students watching. Synonymous. Just checking the chat to see, have I missed anything? Well, I did. Miss. Super sticker from Audie the Tie. Audie the Tie, thank you so much. Audie the Tie has done this probably almost every single live English lesson, and I thank you for that. Got a little something for you.
Oh, thank you so much for the super chat.
Took a quick sip of water while that played. Audie the Tie, thank you, my friend. I do appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Very kind of you. I hope, Audie, your English is improving because of this English lesson. And anyone in the chat, listening on the podcast, watching on replay, I hope this is helping. I hope I am speaking clearly enough and slowly enough so that your English comprehension just keeps getting better and better. So a mint julep. We were talking about a mint julep before. It's an alcoholic drink made with bourbon, sugar, water, and mint leaves. Served at the Kentucky Derby. And right in the middle of that picture are some mint leaves. Yeah. Kentucky bourbon. I think we're going to talk more about bourbon a little bit later because bourbon is synonymous with Kentucky. So we'll talk about it's a type of whiskey. It's a type of, we might call it a spirit in English. And bourbon, 95% of the world's bourbon is actually made in Kentucky. So that's why Kentucky Derby, mint julep, it's made with bourbon, pretty synonymous. How about this? Filippo asked in the Discord server if you would like to become a channel member and you're watching on YouTube. There is a link. You can click on it. It does cost a little bit of money each month. And why don't we do this? There aren't too many people in the chat, but what if I just turn on members only? Yeah. Just as a little thank you to all the channel members. Thank you so much. 5 minutes. Hey Siri, set my timer for 5 minutes. Okay. And this will scare me when it goes off. So, but as a thank you to all the channel members, a little member chat for you. Thank you. Only members are chatting right now. All right. Thank you. So, you're my motivation. My motivation. So motivation is the noun. Hopefully I motivate you. And that is the verb. Thank you, Audie. It's very kind of you. So we were talking about Mammoth Cave National Park. I've talked about national parks in the past, but certain parts of our country, the United States, has been made into a national park. And what that means is that no person can own the land. It is for the people. So the government has bought this land that has become a national park, and tourists can pay to explore the area. In my state of Maine, excuse me, we have a national park called Acadia National Park. And in Kentucky, they have a national park called Mammoth Cave National Park. Right. So let's talk about how big this place is. It's pretty mammoth. To say something is big, you can say it's mammoth. It's another way to say it. And a mammoth in English is one of those big animals. Kind of looks like an elephant, but it's much bigger. And I think they're dead. They're extinct. But at one time, this planet had something called a woolly mammoth in English. It's like a big elephant that unfortunately died out. But Mammoth Cave National Park is located in Kentucky, is the world's longest known cave system. I think I read that wrong. Mammoth Cave National Park, located in Kentucky, is the world's longest known cave system. You may be wondering, Brent, how long is it? Well, I'm going to tell you. 400 miles long. 400 miles long. And you may be saying, Brent, I don't live in the United States. I don't know how long a mile is. Your country is the only one that still uses miles. Well, that's why I put it also in kilometers. Mammoth Cave is over 400 miles long, or 640 kilometers. Now, I don't know about you, but if I went to Mammoth Cave National Park, I would not want to get lost in 400 miles of caves. That would be scary to me. Don't know if I would ever get out. How about this, though? I don't know when you will ever use this term. I don't use it very often in English, but it's fun to say, so I wanted to include it in this English lesson. In English, we call exploring caves spelunking. Spelunking. Hey, if you would like to say that out loud, practice. Maybe you are in a room without people. Feel free. Even if you are, maybe you are watching this from a coffee shop. Nothing would delight me more than to know that you said spelunking out loud. People are getting their coffee. What'd that person just say? Spelunking. Huh? Spelunking. That means that you are exploring a cave. It's fun to say. I promise. It's fun to say. Filippo. Come on, man. Thank you so much. Have a monster. Ooh. That sounds delicious right now. As Felipe, I've tried to cut back. We'll do an English phrasal verb here. I've tried to cut back on the monsters, meaning I don't drink them as often as I used to. But oh man, waking up in the morning, cracking that can, drinking that first sip of Monster in the morning. Oh, that scares me all the time. It's fun. It's good. Thank you, Filippo. I do have a little something for you right here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah, thank you to all of the channel members who are watching. I am going to take channel member only chat off, but thank you to anybody watching. Appreciate it. It is a lot of support, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. We were talking about Monsters, right? The drink, the energy drink. All right, focus, Brent. We need to talk about Kentucky. That is what this English lesson is about. And maybe you said spelunking out loud. And maybe your family members are like, what? Maybe you're listening to this lesson with headphones and you just said spelunking, which means exploring a cave. Mahdi, my friend from Saudi Arabia, how are you? This week, one of my favorite YouTubers, his name is Drew Binsky. He went on his honeymoon. He got married and he went on a honeymoon. And guess where he went? He went to Saudi Arabia. And now that makes me want to go to Saudi Arabia. He drove some jet skis in the Red Sea. Come on. Saudi Arabia. My prediction. In 20 years, in 10 years, Saudi Arabia will be the new Dubai. So, sorry, Omran, if you're living in the United Arab Emirates and Dubai, I think in the next few years, Saudi Arabia will be the new Dubai. They're building a tall building. Looks like it's beautiful. Let's go. All right. Hey, Helena, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Aw, what a cute little baby in your profile picture. No. Okay, Abdi. The Kentucky Derby is held annually. Yeah, not monthly, not weekly, not daily. Annually. Yeah, good question. Whoa. So Mahdi has come out and said it. Dubai, watch out. Saudi Arabia is coming for you. Hey, Chris, good to see you. UK is in the house. Khalid, hope you're doing well. All right. What would happen if you go outside and start practicing English in the presence of people? You might get some weird looks. Yeah, if you remember, I have done a couple videos where I had a microphone and I just started speaking English to people. You'll get some weird looks, but it's fun. Next year, I hope to go to Brazil. Well, I am going to Brazil with a microphone, and I'm going to do a video. Can Brazilians speak English? I want to do it right at Christ the Redeemer. We'll see. Maybe I'll probably get a lot of strange looks, but who cares? It'll be fun. But we are talking about Kentucky. Morocco's in the house. Talk about a beautiful place I would like to visit. We just talked about spelunking, but now we need to talk about bourbon because we talked about this drink, the mint julep, and that is made from bourbon. And if you're talking bourbon, it's a very good chance that this bourbon was made in Kentucky. So Kentucky is famous for its bourbon whiskey production. Around 95% of the world's bourbon is produced in the state. So bourbon is a type of whiskey. I don't want to go into it. I don't know it right now. There are a lot of rules when you're making bourbon. Like, it is aged in barrels, and those barrels have to be new. I think they have to be French oak. The wood has to be French oak. There are a lot of rules when you are producing bourbon. Just like I think there are a lot of rules, Lino from Mexico, there are a lot of rules when you are producing tequila. So it has to be made in a certain way. So I know there are some people watching who do not drink alcohol, and it might be haram because of their religion, right? They might not be able to drink it. It is haram. Hope I'm saying that right. But a distillery in English is a place that makes bourbon. makes any hard alcohol, any high alcoholic beverage, whiskey, vodka, bourbon, gin. A brewery, not easy to say, is a place that makes beer, and a winery is a place that makes wine. Mammoth Cave, we talked about. We're going to talk about bluegrass music just a minute. But before we get to bluegrass music, I do want to let you know about the mountains that are in Kentucky. The Appalachian Mountains are part of the mountain chain that is in Kentucky. You may have heard of the Rockies. Those are on the west coast of the United States. But on the east coast, we have some mountains called the Appalachian Mountains. They're a little smaller, maybe not so famous, but a good chunk of the Appalachian Mountains run through Kentucky. Even in my state, Maine, we have the Appalachian Mountains all the way down to Georgia. In eastern Kentucky, there are big mountains called the Appalachian Mountains. They make the land look very pretty, and people can do fun activities outside there. Maybe you like climbing mountains. Maybe you like walking in the woods. Great place. Appalachian Mountains, very beautiful. But let's talk about, this was mentioned earlier, let's talk about bluegrass music. If you've ever heard of bluegrass music, it started in Kentucky. Bluegrass music is a type of music from Kentucky. It is often played with string instruments like guitar, banjo, and a fiddle. So if you don't know what a banjo is in English, it's that instrument. And if you are if you are listening on the podcast, I'm sorry, you can't see what a banjo is, but it's a lot like a guitar, but not. And how about a fiddle? So in English, a fiddle is a violin. It is the same instrument. Just depends on how you play it. So if you are playing bluegrass music, you are not playing a fiddle. You are not playing a violin. You are playing a fiddle. But if you are playing classical music, you're not playing a fiddle. You're playing a violin. All right, let's check the chat, see if anything is going on here. No way. Theodore, you're watching from a distillery right now? No way. Oh yeah, I don't know the difference between tequila and mezcal, but I hope to visit Mexico one day, maybe go to a place where tequila is made. I don't know. Please, I would love to visit Mexico. Love it. Yes. Haram. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Come on. Are you serious? I would love to go to Lima, Peru. I've done some research. There's a bus company called Peru Hop where I want to go to Chichen Itza, and I can go from Cusco to Lima, maybe even hit La Paz and Bolivia. Doing some research. It might take me a couple years, but geez, so many awesome places around the world. All right. Yeah, it's tough. Problems with pronunciation. The more you speak, the better you will get, even if you have to speak just to yourself to get those muscles going. All right. No, I've never been, Abdi. I've never been to Kentucky, but hopefully one day. Mammoth Caves seems pretty cool. Whew. All right, perfect. I am saying haram correctly. Thank you, Omran. That's why I know so many people who watch these lessons do not drink alcohol, which is why On the YouTube community tab, I said, would you watch an English lesson from a brewery? And I think it was like 88% of the people who answered said yes. So I do like to be careful with that. Alcohol, I've never drank alcohol on the channel, and I probably won't. I've never eaten pork. I've never eaten beef, just out of respect for those people who are watching. So I'll order chicken. Sorry if you're a vegetarian. What else we have to talk about here? Just to make sure everybody knows a little bit about Kentucky. Where's my... Oh, we're here. Abraham Lincoln. Not long ago, I did an English lesson about Mount Rushmore. You might want to check that out. It's easier on YouTube to search for lessons. So you may want to type in Speak English with this guy, Mount Rushmore. We talked about Abe Lincoln. He is our 16th president. And guess what? He was born in Kentucky. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, was born in Kentucky. But not long after he was born, his parents moved to the state of Illinois. Remember, that is a state that borders Kentucky. Where is it? Illinois. So when we cover the state of Illinois, that is known as the land of Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln was born in Kentucky, but he was raised in Illinois. So Illinois, the state where Chicago is located, they like to take credit for Abraham Lincoln. They will say that they are the land of Lincoln. We also should talk about this. Fort Knox, very famous in Kentucky. That is where a lot of gold is stored. So not all, but a lot of the gold that the United States owns is stored in Kentucky at a place called Fort Knox. I don't know how much you can tour Fort Knox. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about basketball. Kentucky has two very famous colleges or universities. One is called the University of Kentucky. The other is called the University of Louisville. And they are known for their basketball teams. Both have really good basketball teams. The University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville are famous universities in the state. They have many different subjects to study and also have sport events like basketball. Yeah, both schools are famous for their basketball programs.